thank you for joining us for our Valuable Leader conversation. You are the president of the IPC. The Valuable 500 are so excited to be part of your mega coalition of change makers, which we're going to talk a little bit about. I'm just really interested to know, how did you become the president of the IPC? And just to discuss a little bit about what your experience has been, what you see as the future, and what excites you about the role.
I was always passionate about sport, Caroline, and since a kid. Of course, being born in Brazil, football was always my passion, but I have practiced many other sports. So it kept as being high on let's say on my personal agenda to work in the field of sport one day. So when I was growing up, but I wanted sports to be kind of part of something bigger, something, not only medals, not only trophies, not only the achievements, but I always wanted to work with sport to benefit something for a greater cause. I could not identify that exactly at the time, but I remember then when I was 20, I was already studying communication. So my background is in communication. I was living in a city that is in the great Rio de Janeiro area called Niterói. And then the Brazilian Paralympic Committee opened their new headquarters, a very humble one. And then I remember I just got off the bus and I offered myself to them. I said, look, I'm a communication student and I would like to work for you guys, as an intern. What do you think? And, there were only 2 or 3 staff at the time. And so, oh, okay, fantastic. You have a TV? Yes, they did. And so the next day, the president of the organization called me. So just to see how small the organization was. And said, well, I heard you want to work for us. I said, yeah. Long story short, I started to work for the Brazilian Paralympic Committee as an intern on the comms department when I was 20.
We say with the work we do with the Valuable 500, it's like we're remarketing or we're recommunicating what disability is to the rest of the world. And it's so interesting that you come from comms and then you love sport. Do you see that too? Do you see that the Paralympics is sort of kind of those two passions, that you're recommunicating disability and sports? Like, do you see that to be true?
I see that. Maybe I see that now, or for a few years already. At that time, maybe I could not, let's say, articulate that exactly. But I said, look, it's sport, which I love. And we are doing something here with sport. Of course, at the time, in 1997, we never had in Brazil at that time Paralympic Games on TV, for example. So at that time, I said, look, and the sky's the limit here. What we can do with sport or through sport, for persons with disability in Brazil, a country with millions of persons with disability. And at the time, it was a subject that was not, let's say, that was not present in the media or in discussions anywhere. It was kind of something ignored. And I think with Paralympic sport, we managed to get, disability to the top of the agenda in Brazil. I think the Paralympic movement has helped a lot to get to where we are. Again, we still have a long way to go, but we were in a very, very bad position by then. That's the beauty of working with comms. You need to understand the stories. Who is the human being behind, the gold medal, or even some of the defeats, or behind the gold medal, or the guy who was eliminated at the quarterfinal. Who is the person behind?
Do you find that the Paralympic movement is criticized for being sort of apart from, or that it's not a fair representation of people with disabilities? Because let's be honest, they're superhuman athletes. They're like Olympians. Olympians. They are Paralympians, but they're Olympians. How does the Paralympic movement work within the disability community? Like, how is that taken and how is that seen? You're delabelizing the athlete as well as delabelizing the disability. So how do you find that? Because I think that brings us to where we are today and what you want to do with this new exciting campaign that's been launched.
Well, I think that is one fundamental difference between Paralympians and Olympians. When we say these guys are superhumans or something like that, maybe in the case of the Olympians, they were born to do that. In many cases, in the Paralympic side of it, they were not born to be athletes. With the right body type, the right skill. It's something that they have developed And it's difficult for someone outside the world of sport to understand it sometimes, but I think this is the most beautiful moment in the journey of a Paralympian, which is not the podium, but it's the moment when they take the decision that, let's say, despite having a disability, despite sometimes living in societies that they don't respect or they don't offer the opportunities for persons with disability in the same way they do with non-disabled people, they make the decision to become athletes and go for the high performance part of sport. And it's super tough to be a high performance athlete. You know, the preparation, the body, the mental preparation, the number of no's, like you cannot go out, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. You need to focus here. It's a lot of hard work and sacrifice. And sometimes living in societies that deny them some of the basic rights, persons with disability decide, look, this is my pathway, this is where I'm going to. So I really admire someone taking that decision, because it is a decision. It's not something that happens naturally.
The Paralympics happen once every 4 years, and listen, the impact is growing. You know, it's this, you know, it's one of the biggest watched moments in the world, you know, when it happens. But I think what is exciting now is that as the impact of the Paralympics is growing, that you want this to be more than once every 4 years. You want to use this extraordinary influence to affect every second of every minute of every day of somebody with a lived experience, the human beings.
As you have said, disability is every day. So it was the point of every 4 years during 2 weeks bringing this up, and then we go back to, let's say, you know, we go back to hibernating, and then 2 years after, now we have the Winter Paralympics. So, and of course, we have a calendar that goes on and on and on. So we have World Championships, Regional Championships, National Championships. There is a whole movement that leads to the Paralympic Games, and so we have competitions basically every day around the world. And I think this was probably what made us a little bit to be seen as something apart from the wider disability human rights movement, because we were kind of focusing on ourselves. Look, we need to be recognized. To be relevant, we needed to be recognized as this incredible sport movement, and the Paralympic Games as what is now the third largest sport event in the planet. But then again, throughout the years, it was clear to me that we were not, let's say, fulfilling the real potential that the Paralympic Games has to, let's say, to accelerate change, to influence people, to be this platform. It became clearer and clearer to me that we needed to align with, let's say, the other segments of the disability movement. So because we were not connected to them at all. And that's the moment that this was really clear to me was when I was at the Convention on the State Parties of the UN in 2017. I was not the president of the IPC yet. And after 3 days, and a good friend of ours, Juan Pablo Salazar, was the guy who invited me to be there and experience that. At the end of the third day, I said, Juan Pablo, I'm kind of embarrassed because we are so disconnected from what is going on here that, you know, we need at least to understand better what is going on with disability around the world outside sport. We need to understand. And then we need to see how we can best serve persons with disability through sport. Because sport, again, is a tool to serve people, everyone in different ways. But I think we need, you know, we exist to serve the athletes and our membership, but we also exist, if not to change the world, while we are here, right? So then we started to design this campaign, and we thought, but you know, we need to create a coalition of organizations and of people from different sectors, because we have something to learn also from them. They have something also to learn from sport, but working together in different areas like the business sector, let's say the private sector, the government, the sport. I think by working together, because this was something that became very clear, that people were working in silos, doing their own thing. And then I felt how we can, and because we deal with something that brings people together, why not use that? So let's bring these organizations together. Let's find a way forward, and let's do something together, but something that, you know, will have a practical effect, something that will be meaningful.
So what happens to these human beings, your friends, these athletes that you know, when they stop, when they come off the track, or they still have to live and to,
Exactly.
go to get a further education, get a job. Your life can't just be on the track, right? It can't just be in the sports field. I guess what you wanted to do is expend your influence so that the human being gets to live that life of full potential, not just the athletic part of them. Is that right?
Exactly, because well, two things here. First of all, this is a challenge for every athlete, regardless if he or she has a disability or not, is what to do when you retire as an athlete. Sometimes athletes, they don't know what to do, and it's a difficult moment. So we have programs to address it. But what we keep in telling them is like, look, when you retire, you will be back to the world. Even if you're the most successful Paralympian on earth, you made some money, it'll be different from compared to the majority of the people, but you'll be on your own. You'll not have organizations to look after you and, oh, what is missing? What else do you need? No. You need to find a job. You need to, again, go back to the world, make new friends or old friends. The world of sport can be a little bit, can bring some illusions sometimes. When we talk about high end, not at the grassroots level, then it's the other way around. There's a lot of hard work and sacrifice. It's important that athletes with disability, they see the Paralympic movement as this platform as well. I think it's important for them to see. And many athletes, they struggle a bit to understand that. And not only in the Paralympic side, even in able-bodied sport, they struggle a little bit to understand, let's say, the higher purpose of sport or what sport can bring to society other than gold, silver, and bronze.
I mean, even maybe to get a transport to go to train. Like even when they're currently training, our world isn't designed for all of our different ways of turning up. So, as you said, there are people to look after you, but surely we're trying to create the most self-determining, independent world for all of us. Because that's true. I often laugh, and when my story is I started into disability business inclusion by going across India on an elephant, right? It's a crazy story. And people often think, oh my God, that was so hard. Do you know what, Andrew? It was easier to go across India on an elephant than it is to live in a world visually impaired when it's not designed for you. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's the truth. And so I wonder, is that what is it like for athletes? And that's the thing that you can change with this extraordinary movement that you've created.
Yeah, I think there are moments in the life of any Paralympian, and regardless how successful he or she is, that they face the same as every disabled person on earth, that they need a service or they need access to something or to an opportunity or many different things that was not designed for them. That's why I think the engagement to what we're trying to do together with the 15
which
campaign.
brings us to this. Now that we're not allowed say anything because it's all top secret. But we are sitting here because of this vision that you have to join the dots of how we can look at the full lived life of a human being and to see how the power of sports can convene the greatest thinkers, organizations who could actually transform together society so that it's equal and disability is integrated into society in a normal way. And I guess that's why we're here, because I always wanted the Valuable 500 to essentially have the same impact as the Paralympics, to be as influential and to be as big. And so when you came up with this idea of bringing together leadership from government and from UN and from human rights and business, I was delighted that you chose the Valuable 500 because now we are the biggest business move for disability. Tell me why you think it's so important to have the Valuable 500 as part of this super coalition that you've created. And without giving any details away, just kind of what is it that we are kind of talking about? So I know we can't make any announcements until the 19th of August, but you can kind of tell us a little bit and why business is so important.
It goes back to what the founder of our movement, Sir Ludwig Guttmann, said in the 1940s. And he was the guy who created the Paralympic movement. He said something like, my dream is that every disabled person in the planet could become a taxpayer. Because this means it's super strong and super simple at the same time. But employment or having, let's say, economic activity means contributing to society. Your ownership of your own life, if that makes sense in some way, your autonomy. It was clear to us that we needed to have a partner that was like the IPC of the of the business side when it comes to disability, and that's that's the Value 500, so the most prominent organization in that area, and with the same mentality and with the same goals, of course, coming from different angles, but with the same goals. So, but also what then business leaders can do. I think this is important because business leaders, they can influence, of course, their own company, being a more inclusive organization or company, and then influencing, their suppliers, their clients, but they also role models these days. Some of the top CEOs in the world, they are role models. Kids want to be like in the future, So I think a Valuable 500 was an more than obvious choice of a partner, because we wanted Valuable 500 to be a partner, be a member of this coalition. So we were super happy when that finally happened.
Because so the way you always say that change begins with sport. Well, I really believe the most powerful force on the planet is business. What business values, society values. Where business leads, society follows. What business includes, society includes. So when we did the soft launch last week, we sent out a communication to our Valuable 500 companies, and we've seen the stats back. And in one email alone, you got a very high percentage of our Valuable 500 community, which means that your intention around this campaign and movement that you're going to announce on the 19th, you already have now hopefully the attention of 500 CEOs, 20 million employees. And that is where the power of sport and business, the potency and the magic of that. Second point is 80% of your partners and sponsors are Valuable 500 companies. So now you talk about joining the dots. So if they're putting all this money into the Paralympic movement, why on earth would they not benefit on becoming inclusive themselves? And there, to me, is your joining the dots. Now, we're not isolating and keeping it out on its own. But if I was to ask you, what do you want from our Valuable 500 community? Here you have them. You're the leader of your movement, one of the biggest movements in sport. Speak to the leaders of our movement of 500 CEOs. What do you want to say to these CEOs?
What I want is that they turn Valuable 500 into Valuable 1 million, into Valuable all companies around the world. I think we're talking about some of the biggest companies in the world, good examples when it comes in different fields of activity. No, we are talking about big companies here, so they can really change the way companies think about diversity, think about disability, and not only thinking, but what they do when it comes to that, because you have many good examples around the world. So I think what they can do is change the business landscape, because again, changing the business landscape will change society. And by changing society, we will get to the dream of Sir Ludwig Guttmann, that more and more disabled persons, if not all of them, could, because I think the could is a good word, if they want. It's a choice. You can isolate, you can live in the mountains if you want, even without or with a disability, if you're black, if you're white, whatever. But if you want to actually contribute to society, having a disability should not stop you.
I think you and I both agree. We don't want business or the world to do this because it's worthy or it's the right thing to do, because it benefits everyone. It's universal exactly. Design, it's a universal approach. If 1.3 billion people win, we all win. And I think what's so compelling, which gives me goosebumps in my back of my neck, is how exciting it is when we see all of our organizations for the first time ever, because we sit on your board, you sit on our board, we're all finally coming together for the same good, not just for disability inclusion, but for human inclusion. And whether we do it through sports or business or activism or celebrity or whatever, it doesn't matter. I think that time is now, isn't it? I know the ambition that you have for this campaign that you're going to launch on the 19th. And we've already heard people go, wow, that's quite lofty. That's quite ambitious, what it is that you are dreaming or envisioning, or actually, let's be honest, making happen. What do you think is the one thing that will get in the way?
I would say it's the same that we face on every day, is the ignorance of people, discrimination, prejudice. Because when we bring together business, sport, the civil society together, this is relevant. This is relevant. So whenever we will be speaking with governments, with companies, with NGOs, civil society, other elements of the sport movement, and we explain what we're trying to do, and they don't think that's important, I think it's the biggest challenge that we have. But to be honest, Caroline, I don't see it, because I think we have the right people here and the right organizations and the right intention and the right direction. And it's amazing because it's the first time ever that we are doing something with Special Olympics, Deaf Olympics, and the Invictus Games Foundation. And I never understood why we never did something together, but I think because we were waiting for something as relevant as it is. So, but it's amazing to see that. And if we're going to speak with business leaders, you know them, you know the language, you know what is important for them. So we know how to approach them. So I think with government is the same, and we have UN human rights with us. We have different organizations. Either, so whenever we need to understand different contexts and talk with different organizations in specific nations, if that's the case, IDA is there. And we have the National Paralympic Committee there. You probably have a company that has, regional offices there, a branch there, or whatever. So I think we are very well prepared for that. I think, we have seen even in some sport events around the world, unfortunately, people using sport for the wrong purposes, to express prejudice, to express discrimination, thinking that we are in the month when we are all celebrating, another movement with the LGBTQ plus, movement, and you see some people going against that. So I can't understand. Maybe it's something I need to work on. I can't understand why people can be against inclusion.
I kind of like to think the only thing getting in our way is intention. That's the only thing that would stop us if you turn a blind eye or you're apathetic, because there's something in this for everyone. And you don't have to be a Richard Branson or Aki Toto to do this. It's every single one of us doing our small piece together. And then adding that up to just under 8 billion people, it's possible. So Andrew Parsons, thank you so much. I cannot wait for the announcement. Finally, I feel like I'm carrying around a massive big secret, like we're embargoed within an inch of our life, on the 19th. Thank you for having us part of your grand plans and grand coalition. We look forward to system changing and causing trouble with you for the next decade. I would like to retire sooner, so I would love us to have achieved our goal within 3 years. But a huge congratulations on everything, and on the courage for the big vision. And thank you for having us part of it.
No, thank you for the opportunity here, but also thank you for understanding what we were aiming for, and to just being engaged with this campaign and with what we are trying to achieve here. So you definitely will be making some trouble around the world, and it's good to have the best troublemakers in the world with us, and you're certainly one of them. We are as well, sometimes different styles, but
Thank you so much, and I will see you on the 19th.
Definitely, I just can't wait.